Some families pass down heirlooms. Ours passed down attitude problems and a deep sense of entitlement wrapped in seasonal gossip. If you weren't the center of attention at every family gathering, you were background noise. Guess which one I was? My name's Eli. Oldest of three, default scapegoat, and apparently, the invisible one in the family photo, both literally and emotionally. I grew up in a house where speaking up meant you were starting drama, and silence was just you being your usual moody self. My younger sister Marissa? Golden child. She could spill red wine on the carpet, blame the ghost of Aunt Patty, and Mom would apologize for not warning her about open glasses. Me? I once forgot to RSVP to a brunch and got a voicemail that sounded like a legal notice. Marissa's entire life was a curated Pinterest board. Somehow, even her mistakes came with matching pastel captions. Her job? Lifestyle content creator. Read, she films herself putting avocado on toast while standing on marble countertops. Meanwhile, I was over here fixing broken HVAC units and laying tile for clients who called me the good kind of quiet. But I was never ashamed of what I did. Not once. I worked. I saved. I sacrificed all the spontaneous fun they bragged about at every holiday gathering just to finally reach a very personal goal. A beach house. Not a mansion. Not a cliffside glass palace. Just a quiet, 2-bedroom fixer-upper with weathered shutters and an honest view of the water. The kind of place you could sip coffee and actually hear the waves without pretending to like jazz. Took me 6 years, 3 jobs, and 1 failed engagement to get there. And when I finally signed the papers? No party. No family dinner. Just me, a cheap bottle of champagne, and my dog Benson, who celebrated by peeing on the welcome mat. It was the first thing that was mine. Truly mine. Not shared, not borrowed, not earned with anyone else's approval. But of course, the silence didn't last. Because nothing attracts family like success they didn't contribute to. It started with a Facebook post. I uploaded a simple photo, me on the porch, sunset in the background, caption. Build something I don't have to explain. The comments rolled in. Marissa. Stunning view. Can't wait to visit face blowing kiss. Mom. Wow. Didn't know you were house shopping. Is this near that cove Marissa likes? Dad. No comment, just a thumbs up emoji like he was approving a license renewal. I didn't respond. I didn't think I had to. Until 2 weeks later, I got a call from my cousin Trent. Yo, congrats on the house, man. Marissa's wedding's gonna look insane in that view. What? Dude, don't play. The invites are sick. Got mine yesterday. Printed on seafoam paper. Your address and everything. I almost dropped my phone into my pasta. My address? Yeah, bro. Your beach house, right? Honestly, generous of you to let them use it. I didn't know y'all were close again. Close again? We'd never been close. I was the one who got a group email from Marissa 5 months ago asking if I could like and share her new wellness campaign. And I hadn't heard a single word since. And now I was apparently hosting her wedding? Without ever being asked? I didn't scream. I didn't call her in a fury or post a TikTok rage rant. I just sat there, blinking at my spaghetti, hearing the ocean crash outside like the universe had already facepalmed on my behalf. I pulled up her Instagram. There it was. A reel. Caption. Excited to announce we're tying the knot at the perfect little beach house, family-owned, filled with memories, and totally sacred ring sparkles #beachbride energy. And in the background of her soft focus B-roll? My damn porch. She'd filmed on my property. Probably while I was at work. No call. No text. No. Hey bro, can we talk? Just a reel. A wedding invitation. And a wave of entitlement dressed in linen and filtered light. And that's when something in me just clicked. I could have called her. I could have begged for an apology. I could have told her I wasn't okay with being the free venue. But I didn't. Because that's what they expected. The quiet one. The pushover. The guy who'd been trained to let it go. For the sake of family unity while everyone else live-streamed their wins. Instead, I opened a new tab. Typed in short-term rental contracts plus beach properties, and started drafting something she'd actually have to read. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Not even shocked. I was awake from clarity, the kind that creeps in after years of swallowing your feelings until they ferment into resolve. See, when you grow up as the spare, you get used to watching your wins get rebranded as someone else's stepping stone. I remember when I fixed up Mom's busted Honda by myself at 17. She called Marissa's boyfriend to thank him because he stood around with the flashlight. When I got my HVAC certification, Dad muttered something like, "At least now you'll always have a job." But this was a full wedding. A destination event being thrown on property that legally belonged to me, promoted on social media, and sent to 150 guests, and somehow, not one person asked if I was cool with it. I read through the guest list my cousin sent me, just in case I hadn't seen it. It was a PDF titled, Beach Wedding 2025 Final FRFR, which told me everything I needed to know about how chaotic this was about to be. Marissa's fiancé, Brad, yes, he's a Brad, was listed as Creative Director of Spiritual Marketing. I still don't know what that means. But based on his LinkedIn, I'm 90% sure it's just dude who charges $400 to design your birth chart and sell you rebranded yoga mats. The guest list included an astrology influencer, a guy named Glow by Chaz, for people tagged only as Marissa's friends from Bali, Sparkles Vibes Sparkles, and an entire row labeled Family, Table TBD, Eli Not Invited. I'm not kidding. They used my house, left me off the guest list, and then sent it to everyone like it was the royal decree. The next morning, I drove to the house early. I brought Benson. He wagged his tail like it was just another chill day at the beach, while I paced the porch trying not to combust. And then it hit me. I didn't need revenge. I needed a receipt. So I called a local vacation property manager I'd chatted with when I was first fixing the place. I told her I was open to one-time weekend rentals, preferably last-minute ones. "What's the occasion?" she asked. "Let's call it family realignment." By Thursday, it was locked. The weekend of the wedding, my beach house, would be rented out to a lovely couple from Ohio celebrating their 25th anniversary. Real guests. Real contract. Real money. No influencers. No barefoot chakra healers. And I included one extra clause. Property not to be entered or used by any unauthorized persons under penalty of trespassing. I printed it. Framed it. Hung it inside the foyer. Just in case Marissa decided to drop by again for another Insta-reel. The best part? I didn't have to say a word. Not to her. Not to my parents. Not to the cousin who'd already RSVP'd to Sunset Caviar Bar. I just waited. And sure enough, the setup day came. That morning, I was 2 hours away visiting a friend. No texts. No posts. No warnings. Just peaceful silence. Until around noon. Ping. One text from my mom. Mom, 12:03 p.m. Hi honey, just wondering, did you rent the house this weekend? No. Hi. No. Hope you're well. Just that familiar tone, part denial, part oh no, did we forget to include the kid again? I didn't reply. Because 5 minutes later, my phone started lighting up like a slot machine at a Vegas retirement convention. Dad, 12:07 p.m. What the hell is going on, Eli? Brad, 12:09 p.m. Hey bro. Face with tears of joy, seems like there's been a mix-up with the venue. You home? Marissa, 12:10 p.m. Eli. We need to talk. Urgent. And finally a photo. Sent by Trent. It was of the Ohio couple. Standing on my porch. Holding a glass of wine. With a handwritten chalkboard sign beside them that said, Happy 25 years, Mike and Susan. Below it. No trespassing. No exceptions. I could practically hear the record scratch from 2 hours away. By the time I got back to town that evening, my phone looked like it had been in a group chat with an earthquake. Texts. Missed calls. Voicemails. Even a few social media DMs from people I hadn't talked to since high school suddenly asking, "Yo, what's going on at your house?" Faced with tears of joy. Turns out, Brad and Marissa had posted a full wedding prep vlog the night before, hyping up tomorrow's setup at our family beach property. They tagged the location. They posted Pinterest mood boards. They even dropped the hashtag #BreezyBrad and Mary Maris, and I wish I was joking. So when the guests showed up that morning with folding chairs and oat milk lattes, expecting to drape eucalyptus garlands over my porch railings, they were met with a politely smiling older couple in matching windbreakers. Mike and Susan. Legends. Apparently, Mike had come outside when the first van pulled up and asked if they were delivering the seafood platter. When the wedding planner stuttered, he simply pointed at the rental sign I'd tacked under the mailbox and said, "If you're not here for the anniversary, you're on the wrong beach." God bless Mike. They tried calling me, of course. I ignored everyone. But that evening, when I walked into my favorite beach cafe for dinner, still in my work boots, covered in drywall dust, guess who was sitting at the corner table, red in the face, arms crossed so tight it looked like a self-imposed straitjacket? Marissa. Next to her? Brad, sipping something with a tiny umbrella like he was still trying to spiritually manifest good vibes. "Eli," she said, standing up like she was about to give a press conference. "We need to talk." This was supposed to be the most important weekend of our lives. I looked at her. Then at Brad. Then slowly at the server behind the bar who gave me a sympathetic shrug that said, "Do you want me to call security or bring popcorn?" "I didn't realize your most important weekend was at a house you didn't own," I said, casually grabbing a menu. Marissa blinked. "It's our family house." "Our?" I raised an eyebrow. "Pretty sure I paid the mortgage." "You ever chipped paint off baseboards at midnight? Rewired the second floor? Because unless ghosts started Venmo contractors, I don't think are as accurate." She flushed red. "It's just, you should have told us. You blindsided everyone." Brad leaned in. "You gotta admit, bro, it was kind of a savage move." I turned to him. "You gotta admit, bro, putting my address on 150 wedding invites without asking was kind of illegal." He opened his mouth to respond. I waved him off like a fly. Marissa sat back down, suddenly looking less like a beach bride and more like someone who'd lost the only Monopoly property worth anything. "Do you really hate us that much?" she asked. And I swear that question hit harder than I expected. Because no, I didn't hate them. I was just done being forgotten until I became convenient. "I don't hate anyone," I said softly. "But I stopped offering myself as a doormat. If you wanted a venue, you could have asked. If you wanted a relationship, you could have built one. But all you wanted was a backdrop for your Instagram fairy tale." Her eyes welled up. Brad looked around like someone might be filming this for bonus content. I stood. "I hope the day you actually plan a wedding, you'll care enough to include the people who care about you, not just their property." I left without ordering. Didn't even feel hungry anymore. That night, I sat on the porch with Benson. He leaned into my leg, ears perked, eyes following the stars like they were beach bonfire ghosts. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I was finally peaceful. Because for once, I hadn't given in. I didn't cave to guilt but it's family. I protected what was mine, not out of spite, but out of respect for myself. And the next morning? I got an email. From Mike and Susan. Subject line: "Thank you for letting us celebrate love the right way." Attached was a photo of the two of them under a string of lights on my back deck. Laughing. Holding hands. No filters. No hashtags. Just joy. And for the first time in years, that house really felt like home. The silence lasted exactly 36 hours. Not bad, honestly. I'd half expected my mom to be on my porch by sunrise with a plate of apology muffins and a speech about how we all make mistakes when wedding planning. Instead, she went digital. Family group chat, fam jam 2 hearts. "Mom, I think we can all agree this has been one big misunderstanding. Mom, let's just clear the air. and move forward in love. Red heart. Marissa. Not sure how love factors into being humiliated, but okay. And Claire. Wait, are we still going to the beach next month or? It was like watching a passive-aggressive sitcom with no punchlines, just awkward tension and emoji warfare. I didn't reply. Not to the messages. Not to the follow-up texts. Not even when my dad called and left a voicemail that started with, "Eli, I know things got out of hand," and ended with, "But you have to admit this was kind of extreme." Extreme? Renting my house legally was extreme? But hijacking someone's property, planning a 150-guest wedding, and excluding the actual homeowner from the invite list, that was just spirited family energy. I played the voicemail on speaker while Benson sat beside me chewing his squeaky lobster toy like it owed him money. Even he looked unimpressed. For the next week, I threw myself into projects. I replaced the back fence, painted the guest bedroom, added motion lights near the steps. Something about reclaiming your space makes you want to reinforce every boundary, literally and emotionally. And then, just when I thought the storm had passed, I got a card in the mail. Yep. A card. From Marissa. Not a thank you. Not an apology. Just a glossy white envelope with gold foil lettering on the front that read, "What family means." Inside, in her perfect cursive handwriting, she'd written, "Families don't always get it right. But they always come back to each other. I forgive you for how things went down. Let's not let a house come between us. Red heart M." I read it 3 times. Not once did she acknowledge what she did. She forgave me? My brain short-circuited so hard, I needed to lie down. I showed the card to a friend that night over dinner. He stared at it like it was a riddle. "Wait, she's acting like you ruined her wedding?" "Yep. And that you owe her an apology?" "Bingo." He whistled. "That's Olympic-level gaslighting. She training for the family manipulation finals?" I laughed. Genuinely laughed. For the first time since this circus started. That night, I finally wrote something. Not a rage text. Not a confrontation. Just a post on my private social media. Sometimes peace doesn't come from fixing things. It comes from knowing you didn't break them in the first place. No tags. No names. Just the truth. But word travels. By morning, I had 3 new texts. One from Aunt Claire. "I saw your post. Just so you know, some of us are proud of you." One from my cousin Ava. "Thank you for doing what none of us had the guts to." And one from Marissa. "Marissa. Wow. Passive much?" No emoji. Just that. And honestly, that one made me laugh even harder. Because if she thought that was passive, she had no idea what I had planned next. See the beach house? It wasn't just mine anymore in the emotional sense. It was an investment. And I had just secured a seasonal contract with the same property manager, to rent it out every other weekend through summer and fall. Good rates. Good clients. Zero Marissa. I posted the announcement a few days later. "Excited to share my beach house will be available for weekend stays soon. DM for details. Beach with umbrella." Marissa didn't reply. But Mom did. "Mom, so we're really not allowed to use the house now?" And for once, I felt no guilt replying. Me. Correct. I didn't expect her to apologize. Not really. Marissa could say, "Namaste," to a barista and "sorry" to a cactus she bumped into at a yoga retreat, but somehow never once had those syllables available for me. The golden child of our family didn't apologize. She reframed. She offered perspective. She brought the energy back into balance. But the word sorry? Not in her curated vocabulary. And that was fine. Because by that point I'd stopped hoping. Instead, I started making the house truly mine. Not just fixing shingles and painting trim. I redesigned the inside too. Knocked down a wall to open the kitchen, built floating shelves, even installed a stone fire pit outside. But here's the wildest part. The more I invested in the house, the more my extended family suddenly remembered I existed. Uncle Mark called to ask how I installed the deck lighting. You always had a knack for that stuff. Aunt Claire dropped off homemade muffins. Just because she was in the area. Even Grandma, who once forgot my birthday because she was busy watching Marissa's baking live stream, sent a text that simply said, "Proud of you. Grandpa would have loved that house." That one, I'll admit, that one got me. And just when I started to feel a little thaw in the family freeze, not from Marissa but the rest, guess what shows up? Another envelope. Same handwriting. Same gold foil. Different message. Brad and I have decided to elope in Bali. Small ceremony. Intimate. No drama this time. We're healing. You're welcome to come if you want. Healing. The word practically vibrated with irony. She had emotionally bulldozed her way through my property, played the victim when I enforced a basic boundary, and now she was offering me a healing invitation, like she was running a wellness retreat. Still, I paused. Not because I wanted to go, but because I wondered, what if I did? Not out of guilt. Not to play peacemaker. But to see it through. To show up and not shrink, not appease, not be the invisible older brother standing by the buffet table next to someone's forgotten purse. But then I remembered, I had a rental scheduled that week. A family from Oregon was coming with their twin boys and a giant Labrador named Pickles. And for once, I didn't cancel my plans for anyone else. Instead, I mailed back a postcard. Congrats. Have fun in Bali. The ocean's pretty nice here too. Eli. No sarcasm. No venom. Just distance and dignity. And then I posted another update. A photo of the house, golden hour lighting on the porch, Benson napping at my feet. Took me years to find peace. Funny how loud the silence used to feel, until I made it mine. This time, I got a response I didn't expect. Dad, I've been thinking about everything. Can we grab coffee sometime? It sat unread for 3 days. Not because I was punishing him, I just needed space to figure out what I even wanted to say. Was I open to talking? Sure. But not if it was going to be the usual round of, "He's your sister," and, "We just didn't think you'd mind." Because this time? I did mind. And I had every right to. So when I finally replied, it was simple. If you're ready to actually hear me, not just wait to talk, then yeah. We can talk. He didn't respond right away. But when he finally did, it wasn't a text. It was a knock on the door. I opened it. There he stood. Quiet. Nervous. Holding 2 coffees. One black. One with almond milk and cinnamon, the way I always ordered it. He didn't say, "Hey, sport." Didn't start with, "You know your sister." He just said, "Can I come in?" Dad looked older than I remembered. Not in the obvious way, like gray hairs or a bad back. More like someone who had finally started carrying the weight of all the things he'd ignored. He sat on the porch chair like it belonged to someone else, like the entire house was unfamiliar territory. And for once it was. Because this wasn't the house where he'd barked orders at a teenage me for wasting time on little fixes. This was the house I built. I saved for. He wasn't in charge here. And I think he felt that, immediately. We sat in silence for a moment. Benson came up, sniffed his shoe, then went back to sleep by my foot. Classic gatekeeper. So, Dad started, clutching the coffee cup with both hands. I've been thinking a lot about how we handled things. Especially the wedding, and the house, and well, pretty much everything. I nodded, not saying anything. He took a deep breath. We screwed up. Huh. No soft intro. No. Both sides made mistakes. Just. We screwed up. A sentence I had imagined in my head for years, never actually expected to hear. I don't think I even realized how often we brushed you aside. He went on. You were always the independent one. Quiet. Reliable. We thought. I don't know. That meant you didn't need us. That part actually stung more than I thought it would. Because I had needed them. Not for money. Not for favors. Just for recognition. For someone to look at me and say, "You matter too. I didn't mean for things to go this far," he added. "But your sister, you know how she gets. Everything's urgent. Everything's a big production." "Yeah," I said. "And you let her make me the prop." He winced. "There." Another silence. This one wasn't tense, just full. "Why didn't you say no earlier?" he asked, like he genuinely didn't understand. I shrugged. "Because every time I did, I was made out to be the problem. The difficult one. The killjoy. Eventually, you stop fighting when the ref's never watching your corner." Dad sighed. Long and slow. "I really didn't think you'd be the one to draw the line." "Neither did anyone," I said. "That's why it worked." We sat for a while. No fireworks. No screaming. Just two men sitting on a porch, staring out at the ocean, realizing that silence doesn't always mean peace. Eventually, he stood. Put his cup down on the railing. "Thanks for letting me in," he said. "And for not throwing the coffee in my face. I half expected it." I smirked. "Next time bring muffins and I'll consider it." He chuckled. "Fair enough." And then he walked off the porch and down the path toward his car. He didn't try to hug me. Didn't pull the "I'm your father" card. He just left the space open. And that, weirdly, was more respectful than anything he'd done in years. I stood there a minute after he drove off. Then I walked inside, sat at my desk, and opened the envelope from the rental company. A new request for a 4-day weekend booking. A family. A real one. With kids and a golden retriever named Butterscotch. They were excited for beach nights, board games, and waffles. I smiled. Confirmed the rental. Then sent a note. "Porch is ready. Firewood stocked. Enjoy the peace, it's been earned." Summer rolled on. The beach house got rented out nearly every weekend. Families, couples, even a few honeymooners, all people who didn't know my history, didn't expect free favors, and didn't try to redecorate my life with hashtags and filters. They just paid on time, respected the space, and left notes like, "Thanks for the peaceful weekend, the ocean sounds healed us." Meanwhile, my own family stayed eerily quiet. Until one Sunday morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, I listened. And there it was, her voice. "Hey, it's Marissa. I know this is weird, but I'm back. From Bali. I'd really appreciate a minute if you can spare one." Back from Bali? I opened Instagram. Sure enough, her feed was radio silent. No reels. No yoga selfies. No bride and Brad adventures in paradise. Nothing. Curious, I let it sit. 3 days later, she showed up. On my porch. No camera crew. No latte in hand. Just her. Hair tied back. No makeup. Eyes puffy like she hadn't slept in a week. "Hey," she said, barely meeting my eyes. "You got a minute?" I held the door for her, not warmly, not coldly. Just neutral. She stepped in, looked around like it was her first time here. In a way, it was. This wasn't a stage for her wedding anymore. It was mine. We sat in the living room, the silence stretching between us like an overused yoga strap. She finally broke it. "Brad and I split. 2 days after we got to Bali." I didn't flinch. Not even an eyebrow raise. She continued. "Turns out, he didn't really want to get married. He just liked the attention." There it was. The crash. I'd been waiting for it, not because I wanted her to fail, but because I knew one day the performance would run out of script. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "Not just for that. For everything." I blinked. "Everything?" "For the house. For the invites. For acting like it was mine. For not asking. For putting you in the position to look like the bad guy just because you said no. For making you invisible all those years." She looked up. Her voice cracked. "I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But I'm trying." I took a breath. Looked at her. "Why now?" She gave a sad smile. Because when everything fell apart, I realized I had nowhere safe to land. And the only person who ever gave me a real place to land, I treated like dirt. Oof. That one hit. We talked for over an hour. About childhood. About how she felt pressure to be perfect. About how I felt pressure to disappear. And then she asked timidly, "Do you think we could start over?" I thought about it. "I'm not the same person anymore," I said. "I'm not the guy who stays quiet just to keep the peace." "I don't want you to be," she replied. That surprised me. So I nodded. "We can try." She left quietly, no dramatic exit. Just a hug and a whispered, "Thank you." And for the first time in forever, it wasn't about ownership or attention. It was just two people, damaged, stubborn, flawed, trying to rebuild without filters. I closed the door. Sat on the couch. Benson jumped up beside me and let out a deep, satisfied sigh. I looked around the room. Still mine. No more hijacked dreams. No more stolen spaces. Just me. At peace. And one final notification blinked on my phone. A review from my last renters. Felt like home, even though it wasn't ours. Fall came fast. The beach air turned crisp. The waves calmed down. Tourists thinned out, and locals started wearing sweaters like it was a fashion competition. And me? I stood on the porch of my house, coffee in hand, Benson by my side, watching the sun rise over the water like it was clocking in just for me. The house was quieter these days. Not in a lonely way, in a settled way. No more chaos. No more surprise family events, popping up like viruses on a sketchy laptop. Just me, my dog, and the sound of seagulls trying to rob each other for breakfast. I hadn't seen Marissa in weeks. But we texted occasionally now. Nothing deep. "No. You've changed." Speeches. Just progress. She was in therapy. Said she wanted to unlearn the version of family she thought was normal. That sentence alone was more growth than I'd ever expected. And as for the rest of the family? Let's just say, they learned the hard way not to assume the quiet one would always stay quiet. They still tried occasionally, subtle jabs in group chats like, "And May, it's a shame the beach house isn't for family anymore. Mom, some people forget who raised them." But I didn't reply. Because I finally understood, I wasn't responsible for their entitlement. They didn't get to rewrite the past. Didn't get to claim my peace like they claimed my porch for a wedding I wasn't invited to. The house was never theirs. It was mine when I painted every crooked window frame. Mine when I scraped together deposits while sleeping on a futon. Mine when I learned how to install a sink off YouTube tutorials and pure spite. And now? It was mine in every sense. Not just as property, but as proof. Proof that boundaries can be built. Peace can be earned. And silence, when chosen, is a powerful thing. A week before Thanksgiving, I got one last message from Dad. "Mom's planning dinner. She asked if I'd invite you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I sent a single sentence. "Tell her thanks, but I'll be hosting my own dinner this year." 2 days later, I posted a photo. The table set for 8. A few close friends. 2 neighbors. One couple who used to rent the house and were now visiting from Oregon. And right there in the center, a small handwritten card that simply said, "Welcome to the home that built itself, brick by brick, boundary by boundary." I didn't need them to see it. But they did. And I knew they saw it, because not one of them messaged me after that. Not to complain. Not to guilt trip. Nothing. For once, they finally understood. I wasn't punishing them. I was done with them taking. The waves kept rolling. The sun kept rising. And the porch light stayed on, not for the past, but for the future I'd made by myself. Benson let out a sleepy bark beside me. I sipped my coffee, smiled, and whispered to no one in particular. "Guess who owns the beach now?"